Bom dia a todos. My name is Armando Somoza. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I lived 11 years in New York City in a creative economy, pursuing a creative career. Serial entrepreneur, owner of a creative agency as well too. Happy to be a panelist.
all of a sudden. So what does creative economy mean to you? And Armando, tell us a little bit more about kind of how you are navigating this new phase of the creative economy as we're seeing new technologies come online, as we're starting to see, funding dry up in a lot of ways for everything from marketing budgets to donations for artists. I sit on an arts board, so I'd love to know your perspective. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you are a soon-to-be graduate of CCA, correct? California College of the Arts?
Yes.
What? San Francisco, Bay Area, yes. So tell me a little bit about how you're navigating this current moment in the creative economy.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think if we take a step back and explore a definition of creativity, and what I believe is, and what I live by is creativity is the ability to identify patterns, connect seemingly unrelated dots to invent new and different perspectives and opportunities. So if we imagine that as kind of a basis for creativity, when we examine a creative economy, it's one's ability to connect dots in seemingly unrelated fields and spaces to create new opportunities. So I'm pursuing an MBA right now in design strategy. So it's being able to, to use design practice. Yes, to connecting dots. That'd be beautiful. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Most recently, I had a startup where we were producing original hip hop music that taught computer science concepts. So once again, hip hop, computer science. How do you connect those dots, right? So it's one of the ways of teaching young folks how to integrate and engage in a creative practice, to examine and explore one's voice, and to express that in the space. So when we're examining this moment in creative economies, I think we often seclude and extract creativity into its own space, believing that arts, nonprofit, for example, may be the only space to pursue or to express that. I'm curious, and I propose a challenge to everyone that I meet, is how do we incorporate, engage, and honor, celebrate, but create space for creativity within any context, within any economy, within any business or organization, right? So rather than pulling it and extracting it out into its own space, saying, oh, wait, no, that's art and creativity. How do we integrate art, creativity, and creative people into the core functions of all of our businesses and of all of our organizations?
And I was wondering, remind me your name again. Stephanie. See, I did my research on my other panel. I promise. Stephanie, thank you. Can you tell me a little bit about what is the financing like for creativity here in Brazil? Bring me into the economy of creativity, like the money, like how is it financed? What is the economic situation for creatives?
I'm still trying to discover. I think that festival is one way to get more visibility, and also the opportunity to connect and maybe generate funding is not easy. My brand with my mom, we launched it during the COVID. So especially here in Brazil for Black women, it's so hard to get money from bank, for example. To be clear about it, when I have some white colleagues with the same level of higher education, in the same professional, and when you see the credit offers for them is 10 times more than I can get from the bank, for example, and also for my mom. So I don't know where is the money. So if you have that information, please share with me. But I'm so glad that discovered that festival, like he and a lot of Black entrepreneurs generating that money. But I think most of my Black women entrepreneurs in my connection, they are just trying to apply for, how can I say, festivals and organizations like that to get money. I think is the easier way to assess that.
I think that it often goes under-acknowledged how difficult it is for women around the world to get access to finances. My mother and I were just talking, even in the United States, it was only until probably the mid to late 1970s that women could go to a bank and get a loan without seeking their husband's permission, right? So to hear that it is difficult, not only for women, but especially for Black women to be able to get financing, that suppressive energy on our creativity is so, it's just so critical to understand as we're thinking about what it means to create a modern creative economy that gives access, full and equal and equivalent access to the financing and resources to make art happen.
Yeah, I would like to add something. For example, here we have 5 finalists, and I think we are also connected about creative economy, and all of them has a formal job to keep their enterprise. So in my case, all the cost is with me, is my responsibility. Your revenue is for my mom. So it's my responsibility to take care of the cost of the online store, for example, and the taxes and everything, to save the money for her, because it's more about her and for her independence, financial independence. And when you talk with other finalists and other entrepreneurs, women, they are still trying to balance the motherhood and also a formal job, and then running their own business to try cover all that things. So it's a specific characteristic of Black women entrepreneur here in Brazil. They are 3 lives running together, I think.
That is something I think many Black women in the United States can empathize with. Running 3 jobs to get, basically the equivalent of 1 in terms of that revenue. That's the R word, right? What you're bringing in. Exactly. And then also supporting the family with that. So 3 times the effort, with 1x the reward, while you're still trying to figure out how to support the family. I completely understand. Now, Armando, I've had the privilege of meeting your absolutely phenomenal wife, who I know is here with us as well. You have a beautiful family. You're living in Denver, but you also know the Bay Area. Bring us a little bit into the money of the American creative economy. Like, how are you making it work? How are you pulling it together?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the money of the creative economy in the United States is a challenging one. I mean, to the point that we're discussing now, the percentage of venture capital that goes to founders of color in the United States is under 5%. And when we look at women, especially Black women in the space, it's under 1% of venture capital that actually goes to women-run, women-founded companies. So when we look at the landscape, I mean, we look at the Bay Area, we look at kind of all the economic centers of the United States, New York, the billions of dollars that go through and flow through that space, the tiniest and smallest percentage is actually available to us in our creative pursuits. But not only our creative pursuits, our entrepreneurial pursuits that create jobs, that create spaces, that create culture, right? So it's always fascinating to find that the paradox between culture creators and those who can benefit from the creation of that culture, right? You see whiteness and white-centered spaces extract and be able to then create entire economic systems off of culture that communities of culture create and have historically created, but don't benefit from. So it's a real challenge, right? When you look at your creative pursuits and what you can do as an entrepreneur is a part of a venture, if that's the space that you're looking through, or of integrating those creative pursuits into another kind of business space. It's there's this separation that happens. It's like, oh no, I'm not a creative. Like I think it's fascinating that you opened up the space as that question, and we see that specifically in the United States through our schooling system, right? You see young children from their early ages of 1st grade, 2nd grade, you ask the classroom, how many of you consider yourself an artist? The entire classroom will raise their hands. But you start to go further into the educational system, you see the institutionalization of young people, and especially of young people of color, and you see that creative energy being sapped and sucked out of the kind of the origins of our young people, right? So fast forward into professional careers, you see this extraction, you see this separation, and you don't see this integration of those things. So it's a challenge in the United States.
And so, Stephanie, in Brazil, I have always known Brazil to be a place of incredible color, vibrancy, almost endemic creativity. And I'm wondering, do you find that happening? Did you find that through your youth coming through the schooling systems of Brazil, that it was sort of kind of like creativity was increasingly, as Armando was outlining, pushed to the side, where children were seeing themselves as less and less creative as they grew older?
I think it's more deep than that, because I came from a public school, and I don't remember one time that I heard from my teachers that I can be anything. It's just to conclude it and go to work. So I think that's the point. When you studying in a private school, for example, I have a son, he's 8 years old, and in Brazil, when you work for a private school, you have the right to have your children studying at the same place. So you can't work for a place that can offer better opportunities than your children are having in the public. So it's a good law. And I saw my son with 3 years old, 4 years old, having a lot of creative activities in his private school. Even I'm not paying because I didn't have the money in that time. And when I compare with my niece, that are studying a public school, for example, they don't have that activities at all, you know. I think we're becoming to change, and how I mentioned before, I'm the result for public policy about education, and I'm so proud of that. I think we are working on it, but when I was young, when I was in the primary schools, I haven't the opportunity to try myself about creativity. My creative roots become from my mom. So I watch her doing creative things, and I can inspired by her, you know. So yes, I think we need to put more effort in the educational system to give the young people and the children the opportunity to experience the creativity. And it's interesting because at the same time, I didn't have creative activities inside the school. Was also through the school that I went for the theater. How can I say sorry? Theater? I can say theater, yeah. Yeah, theater. For in the first time, you know, it's so. It's like interesting because I didn't have creative activities inside the timetables of my school, but was also from the school that I get my first experience seeing like na movie and go to the cinema and creative experience like that, you know. So I think we have an opportunity to get better on it and have more creative activity and experience for young people here in Brazil.
That's phenomenal. And I completely understand. I went to both public and private schools. And you're right. There's kind of this universal difference between the two in terms of access to opportunity to really enter into that free-form space. And how do we remove the element of privilege from that opportunity where it's really becoming something universal, I think is something that as we move forward, we're going to have to figure out, like I work in the tech sector, how can technology unlock that, for example? So I recognize that I've been talking a lot, but many of you probably don't know who I am. So I'll take a very, very quick moment to bring you across who I am. I just love asking questions. I used to be a journalist. I worked for the Washington Post. I worked for PBS. I worked for Gwen Eiffel. I had a phenomenal career as a journalist before I moved into the tech sector with a brief stopover at the Stanford Design School. So this is why I ask people that question of how many of you see yourself as creative. That's something at the D School they always teach you to ask, because you need to really take the time and the effort to invite people into their creativity, because we all inherently have it. And so that's something that, you know, is really, really important to me and critical to me. I spent a number of years at Google. I ran internal communications at Google X, which was responsible for making new companies for Google's parent company, Alphabet. So Waymo, Loon, Wing, a lot of, you know, sort of popular companies a lot of people, particularly in the US, had heard about. And now I run my own startup called Margin Call, and it focuses on elevating underrepresented voices into using new technologies. So VR 180, artificial intelligence. And then I also work for a company called Smart News, where I am the chief of staff to the chief technical officer. So I do a lot of different things across tech and art. So I am here for this.
And now we need to leave and keep just you here
now
talking because
now you need to tell me.
GCV, guys.
No, you need to tell me, what do you need to see from any of the entities that I listed? Stanford, Google, Smart News is a Japanese startup on news aggregate. Like, what do you need to see, Stephanie, from those entities in order to be able to have the seedbed required to continue to expand your creative potential?
I think I'm already doing something for that because I'm pursuing a master's degree as well in innovation and entrepreneurship. And one of my modules is creative economy. And I think the universities and institutions can help with research. I really believe in the research power. So we can produce that content and show for the society we have a problem and we needed to work on it. So I think institutions can help. Firstly, doing research and supporting research. And secondly is understand how the creative economy and creative abilities is important to keep our society in our identity. Because creativity for me is more related about human beings, you know? Even we have AI and a lot of technology running right now, be creative is more about human beings, you know? So I think the institution can support creative entrepreneurs and creative activities because it will, how can I say, make the society stronger and more connected with that identity.
Armando, hit me with some wisdom on this. Like, what do these entities need to do? Not that you know anything about that.
Yeah. No, I love the question. I think one of the biggest challenges in the creative economy space is the barrier to entry. How might we create the tools, right? So when you're asking about the institutions that you just listed, with the emergence of AI and the new tools that are beginning to expand the capacities of being able to build prototypes, concepts, translate ideas into things that can be shipped, can be broadcast, can be launched without having a technical background, right? A full technical background. Because I think that's one of the biggest challenges is that in the tech industry, in the tech space, is overrun by white men, engineers. So there's a personality type, there's a kind of social archetype, there's kind of a whole entire kind of lineage that dominates. It's an affinity group. Yeah, absolutely. That dominates the space and controls, gatekeeps the space. So if you don't have a technical background, the challenges of trying to enter into the space and launch something that you can test, that can be viable, that can be expanded, is challenging. So I'm really curious in the space of like how does AI begin to, or how can we build platforms? How might we build platforms that can then allow people the tools to then launch? I mean, we have AI that can build code. You have AI that can produce, moving image, video, anything now. Yeah. So it's like, how do you then create platforms that can open and expand and allow entry points for people to create their own concepts that can then be tested and validated in their own kind of areas, So I think there's a real opportunity here for rather than just looking at the business model and the business case behind these emerging technologies from these institutions of like, how can we continue to make billions of dollars? It's like, well, how can we create a platform for others to launch their own concepts and be able to expand, and create their own enterprises, their own ventures?
I'm curious of those of you in the audience, how many of you use AI on a daily basis? ChatGPT, Midjourney? No, I see two hands. Okay, I got to know what you're doing with it. I'm going to be... hold on. I'm going to take this off because I don't think I need it. I want to hear what you're doing with AI that you got to...
Hello. Everything, basically everything with AI. No, but small things like normally validate my own ideas. So yeah. It's kind of strange because I'm trusting more on AI than on my peer, on my job, but sometimes I do it because it's really quick and sometimes provide a different point of view that I didn't expect, that let me go for another perspective to look at the problem.
I've been using Microsoft's Copilot. The reason that has been helpful versus ChatGPT is it actually is connected to Bing, so their search engine. So it's bringing up some like relevant links, so that if I am not satisfied with a ChatGPT answer, which is usually my thing, or usually the case, I go over to Copilot, which is giving me source links to what they're sharing with you and the results. So you can even dig further into rabbit holes. And the way that I use it is, so I'm a program development coordinator, manager, and I do a lot of like strategizing, and I work in mental models and mind mapping. And I sometimes I can't start at the mind map. I need to start at the like inputs and the research and looking at other mind maps. And so often just doing just that research kind of modeling work is what I use some of these AI generators for, and Copilot helps me with that.
Yeah. Let's get one more. Sir, that's all. Hey, guys.
First might be more interesting. Hello? Hello? Okay. Okay. It's not as interesting, but I kind of use it for emails, like, because I have to send a lot of emails every day, so I can just put in some bullet points. I can draft a good email. I can edit it and keep moving. ChatGPT. And then we use another software program. I work for a city through our IT department that analyzes all the sidewalks, and it kind of finds particular areas where it thinks the sidewalks are in danger of being ruptured, so we can identify them to be fixed. Yes. City of LA.
Yeah, LA. Okay. San Fran up here, plus DC.
So similar to you, I mainly sometimes use it to summarize my own thoughts. Like, I feel like I'm rambling and I'm all over the place, and I'm like, what are the themes of my own thoughts? So I've even like copy and pasted like my last 10 LinkedIn posts, and I'm like, what are the themes? What should I say that I like talk about in my LinkedIn profile?
Nice.
Yeah, so I've used it a lot on like website rebranding and brand development.
So this is kind of what creative economy is about.
Yeah.
Y'all didn't realize you were going to be panelists, did you? See, that's how I roll. But in all honesty, like the reason I asked this question, the reason I surveyed the group is I worked on AI before ChatGPT got released, and I kept pinging it and using it, and I was like, what are people going to actually use this for? And I remember talking to very senior engineers in that affinity group, right? And I am not of that affinity group, so we have very interesting conversations. And they told me, they were like, call me when people really use this thing, because it's a chatbot. Like, we've had chatbots forever. We weren't necessarily feeling the kind of like, wow, other than obviously the deep tech and the processing and so on, the compute, it's very fascinating. But what would people actually use this for? And I think that as we start to enter into more deeply this new phase of the creative economy, we're going to need to do more of what I just did, which is talk to each other about how we're using new technologies in order to be able to understand what are the themes of my ideas? Because systems thinking is complex. We don't think well in systems. We don't think well in series. A very wonderful Google engineer taught me that. You can look him up. His name is Donald Martin. He's incredibly intelligent. He is phenomenal. But how do we actually use these tools? If we sit in our isolated boxes in LA doing strategy, just using these tools but not sharing with each other the meaningfulness that we are getting from them, then we're not actually going to be able to leverage in our own affinity group the power of these technologies. So this is something I would offer to all of you is what is the next stage of the creative economies? It is sharing how we're using the next stage of technologies in order to foster and embolden even our creativity. So I'm curious, I'll pose the question now to my panelists. You see how I did that? I just reversed it back. How are you guys using AI? Walk me through it. Like, are you sitting on ChatGPT? Are you, is it Copilot? Is it Bard? Is it Gemini? What are you guys using?
I'm using ChatGPT and Gemini from Microsoft as well. And yes, I used to do my emails, especially when I needed to write something academic for my teachers in the university. So it's helped me a lot, even about translation. But for my brand, what I'm doing is using ChatGPT to organize my SEO content. And guess what? We are in the second place for Afro clothes here in Rio, organic in Google. So I have been using ChatGPT to help me with that. Yes, in another life, I was a front end. another life, so far away.
I was a journalist in another life.
Yeah. So I have knowledge about SEO previously. I work in 2 companies doing front-end engineer. So I know the technique, but sometimes I don't have a lot of time to do it because, I'm doing a lot of things together. And ChatGPT really helped me to get better with my techniques and previous knowledge. And we are using it in our online store. But going further, I think when you talk how people are using AI, and I heard something was like that, AI will not substitute people, but people that use AI will substitute another people. And for me, it's amazing because in the beginning, when I heard about AI, I think in Portuguese, ferrou. I can't say it in English. I don't know. Okay, we lose it, like something like that. We will lose, you know? And yeah. I'm gonna get my translator on. Hold on. Please help me to translate ferrou. I don't know. Thank you.
Obrigada.
And I thought I will lose my jobs because AI will do everything for us. But now that I'm starting using it in my daily routine as a professional, I can see a lot of opportunities to become a better professional using AI, you know? So I'm not afraid of more to be substituted from one AI, you know? And there is a lot of jokes here in Brazil that we are professional and you can stay in a meeting, for example, listening foolish things. AI can do that. So don't worry, you keep your jobs, but I think it's important you try to apply it in your work, because if you don't do that, probably another professional will do.
I love the bravery that you are bringing to this new technology, and I am here for it. Can we just get a hand for the bravery and the energy that you are bringing to this? Like, so many, I just literally came off of a panel, last weekend. So many people are afraid of AI coming down the line, but to hear your optimism, your bravery, moving through that initial reaction of worse food, to really take it on, incredible, absolutely incredible. Armando, how are you diving in with this thing that talks to us now?
This thing that talks to us, right? Wow. In a lot of ways, I've been using it to synthesize information. Big pieces of information. I've been doing a lot of reading. I've been reading many books. I was
about to say, I see you.
Summarize, summarize the book, summarize the concepts. Like, what are the main 3 concepts? What are the main, and how can I apply them? So I think what's fascinating with a lot of the platforms and how they're exploring, but in ChatGPT specifically, where you can create the prompt and then the follow-up prompt and the refinement and the refinement and the refinement, and you can take it in these different spaces and apply it in new context. So you can start first with, summarize this book to me, or summarize this article, or summarize this case study. And then it's like, how might this be applied to X, Y, and Z that you're working on? So I'm doing a lot of market research, a lot of exploration, just kind of finding ways to ask questions that are helping me in my creative pursuits, right? And ultimately what I'm doing. So rather than spending so much time experimenting, I'm getting some information to sharpen my experiments. Rather than just casting a big wide net, I can narrow it down a little bit more and make some choices, intentional choices about how I'm pursuing my creativity and the ideas that I'm exploring.
Beautiful. So I just want to see if there are any questions in the audience. I want to recognize we started a little bit late, so I'm ending us a little bit late. I'm totally here for BPT, Black People's Time. I love it. Any questions in the audience for our panelists? Yes. Absolutely. Here, I'm coming down. I'm unhooking myself.
Get easy.
I know.
AI is hearing us talking about it. This one? No? No, can you hear me? Can y'all hear me? Hello, hello?
For example, as a creative professional. A little bit louder. Okay. As a creative professional, how would you recommend for people like, for example, I do my job, then I will go home and start to be creative. How can I bring this to my, to make it more like seamless, to embed it into my life, and good benefit for that? Thanks.
So how do I bring creativity and embed it in my life?
Yeah.
I heard it. That was
got
your
it?
routine.
That's
what I'm here for.
You're phenomenal. Go for it. Go for it.
I'm a designer, and the design thinking process, before you create something, you need to
But no problem, I can speak loud. So when you think about the design thinking process, for example, before you start to create or design anything, you need to consume all the content. So my recommendation, my advice for you, if you like to become more creative, probably need to consume more content about creative economy or other things. Because sometimes to repeat and imitate the same thing, but if you break that bubble and go away and start connecting with other people with different perspectives and different kind of jobs, you can use your own.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love your question. Hello? Hello, hello? Okay. I love your question. I think one of the most interesting things, a couple weeks ago, I was on a panel where it was about entrepreneurship. And I had a question where somebody said, well, I don't make anything. What advice do you have for me as an entrepreneur? And my response, and my response now is, it's less about what you produce and what you create. It's more about what you can ask and what you can learn. Can you pay attention, listen deeply, identify and see patterns, see things that other people aren't seeing? That's where creativity emerges. But the ability to ask deep questions, to empathize deeply, to understand, ask new perspectives, be present in a different way. That's what allows for new things, because they emerge. These things just kind of, you start asking the questions and paying attention. All of a sudden, you're like, wait a second, here is something. Now I can bring these things together to create something new and different, right, in the space. So listen deeply, pay attention, like really, really have that as a part of your core function.
You are doing it now. So
Yeah.
congratulations.
We got one more question. Yeah. Oh,
I'll be fast. I think one thing that I've noticed a lot with like Latino, Latinx, Black entrepreneurs is that we don't get the chance, or creatives, we don't get the chance to fail up. So I think of like Elizabeth Holmes, right? This white woman who was like, I can test blood with a whatever. And people were like, yes, take my check. And then we show up and we have like a 50-page business plan, and like our parents as co-signers, they've mortgaged their house, we mortgaged our house, we dress professionally, we come, and they're like, no, we don't believe in your concept. So the frustration of not being able, both in Latin America, Brazil, and in the United States, to not be able to be eligible for funding, even when we know it's out there, even when we know our ideas are incredible, even if we've worked 3 jobs, parented 3 kids, you know what I mean? Like, I'm curious for you all, when that doesn't work and you can't count on those institutions, what is the role of community? What is the role of leveraging friends and family for your first initial funding? Because I know you both have probably done that. So just talk, if you can share a little bit about how you've been able to kind of still find your own, maybe it's communal investing or funding to be able to fuel your opportunities forward.
We got 5 more minutes.
Okay, it's working? Can you hear me? Okay. Imagine Elizabeth Rom become a black woman and say, oh, I can do that. Yeah, but okay. Skip that part. But, for example, to be here, I know about that festival because of my community. Someone else sent me, look that, you should apply. And I think my recommendation is, if you are not able to get a banking financial support, it's my case right now, we try to produce money by my formal job as well, but try to connect into the community. Because especially after my racialization process, I become more close and closer with my black community. And I need to say thank you for that. For them, because was how I accessed that information like that events to get more funding. But, for example, last year I did 2 different events in São Paulo about black community, and my workforce on that was my way to support my my friends to produce something special and get attention and get money after the event. You know what I mean? So here in that event, we can see that we have a lot of volunteers here, and it's because there is more than us. It's like how can I say that? Sorry. It's more than us, you know. We have a lot of black people here working that event today, not about just the money, but with that visibility we are generating here, probably other Afro entrepreneurs can get more funding through that networking. So my recommendation for all black entrepreneurs is try to produce your networking. I think is the key point.
I'm going to run it to one additional question, and then we're having an answer to that.
Hi, my name is Rafael. I'm a journalist, and I ask in Portuguese because my English is not so good. O que vocês acham ou o que vocês esperam das inteligências artificiais hoje, né? Porque atualmente nós começamos com o ChatGPT, o Google lançou o Bard, que atualmente é o Gemini, o Notion, a plataforma Notion tem a própria inteligência artificial dentro dele, e também o Adobe Photoshop lançou aquela que provavelmente tu escreve e ele cria ali em cima, né? Assim como também a plataforma Canva também tem um modelo bem parecido. O que vocês acham, assim, que a gente vai passar por um momento que vamos ter muitas inteligências artificiais no mercado, a ponto de ficar super saturadas e a gente escolher algumas, ou vai ser um movimento de vai ter bastante e de repente elas vão começar a diminuir e só algumas vão se consolidar no mercado? Não só, tipo, como um todo, né?
Boa pergunta. Alô, alô?
Como um todo.
So I'm happy to take that one. Armando, just to summarize, because you speak Portuguese?
I understand most.
Most of it.
I got
okay.
most of it. Yeah.
You're so much. I don't even know why I was looking at you like, do you need help? You don't. I'm happy to take this one. And thank you to our translators. That was beautiful. So basically, here's what I think is likely to happen. Oh, yeah, I'll repeat. Yes, for those of you who don't have translation. So, yeah, no offense. So basically, what's going to happen, given all of the AIs that exist across many different products? Google's released one, Microsoft, obviously, through OpenAI, and OpenAI has its own models, et cetera. And Canva, I think you had also mentioned Canva. Notion has an AI in search that I've just started playing with. All of these applications that we use every day have got their own AI doing a thing. What's going to happen when all of these AIs kind of, just proliferate? Which ones are going to survive? Here's what I think. This is why I asked the question about, who's using what for what. because that's going to determine what survives. We're very much in a moment similar to when Amazon existed on the internet in its early form in the 90s, when the code on that site was as easy for anybody to look at it as me, because I did, and it was really, really interesting. But it was basically a flat website where you could order books. That's where we are with AI, to my mind. So we have a lot left to see in terms of the rise, the fall of many of these AI tools. And I actually think that chatbots are just one part of the technology. That's the one that we can play with right now that we're kind of seeing doing interesting things. But what's really exciting is the infrastructure that's being built to support it, very similarly to how tools like Google Search were created to allow for us to search the internet. That's what we're starting to see, because before search, there was Netscape, Yahoo had its own search, but then Google became dominant. We're going to need to see how the entire ocean of opportunity that's being created now by the powers of compute we now have, how that ocean is going to sort of allow for different landforms to arise from within it. We're in terraforming at this point. So I think we should all be really excited. And that's why I ask, how are you using what's available to you right now? Because as you share that, that's what's going to determine who survives and how they survive and what new capabilities emerge from the infrastructure that large corporations are currently building. All right, thank you. I'm done.
Thank you all so much. Thank you. Give this panel a hand.